Welcome to Blue Marble Defender story number 26, Smokes and Mirrors. Chapter 1, The Best of Times. The coronavirus had been overcome, life was back to normal, and today every ground ball rolled in like it was on a conveyor belt, and his mitt was a vacuum cleaner for pop-ups, line drives, and anything a teammate could throw. Rookie already had good friends in Heidelberg and was astonished at the quality of play in its Little League. He knew the family might not stay too long. Mom was working through a one-year visiting professor post at the university, and Pops was always being asked to deal with an extraterrestrial troublemaker or something somewhere in the world. But it was springtime, the sun was out, and fun was around every corner. After the game, Rookie picked up his baseball bat. He thanked it for powering that high drive over the left fielder's head, trotted home, grabbed a big glass of water, dropped his butt into a chaise lounge, and picked up his book about Archimedes. Half hour later, he heard the unique sound of Pop's mobile phone sing out, and then chatter followed. Pop's voice tone said he was talking to somebody he liked a lot. After a few minutes, he yelled from inside the house, "Rookie, call for you. Can you come take it?" "Hey, Bud, what's shaking?" "Well, hi, Uncle Amerigo. Nice to hear your voice." "I have a little opportunity for you if you're interested. Comes from a friend of mine, Elaine Merck. She owns Space Services. That's a super high-tech business that sells to big companies and the U.S. government. She's pulling together an advisory group for a project she's considering. Wants to bring together the world's best at problem solving and improvising around unanticipated obstacles. And that's because, get this, she plans to send a rocket to the asteroid belt, harvest rare earth elements, and bring them back. But, hey, like anything that offers a huge payback, it includes huge risks. So she wants a group to examine the venture, imagine what could go wrong, and lay out how a flight crew would overcome it. Now, if that's not exciting enough to gain your interest, she also wants the group to meet a second time to assess whether it's possible to pull a whole asteroid into Earth's orbit. Her goal is to give poor countries a gift of precious minerals. And if the group can't figure out how to pull a whole asteroid, she wants to know if they could break off a chunk, tow it back, and parachute it down. Rookie said, "Wow, that's an attention getter. Uncle Americo, I'd like to help, but I'm not an astronomer or a mining engineer. I'm afraid I don't see how I could contribute much." "Oh, she's not looking for what she describes as book-learned skills. She has plenty of engineers on her payroll, and she can hire more if she needs. She is looking for people with a proven history of confronting the unexpected and dangerous, and finding clever ways of overcoming them. She asked me for recommendations, and since I know you, your brother, and Pops are the world's best at improvising under pressure, I found you right away. But I just learned from Pops that he and Leo can't make it. Leo is exhibiting his drawings in a week-long show at the Berlin Museum of Modern Art. You probably knew that, but hey, for me, it's too bad. So, man, you're the only candidate from Heidelberg. What do you say? The meeting's in 2 days from now, and it's in New York City. She'd send a private jet to pick you up." Rookie replied, "Well, if the jet comes with a perpetually filled bowl of popcorn and a connection to internet games, I'll sign on with pleasure." And the deal was done. Amerigo sent him an email a few minutes later saying he would present himself at 69 P Street 2 days later, and Rookie committed. An hour later, Rookie received an email from the Secretary to Space Industries Chairman Elaine Merck, thanking him for participating in changing the meeting's location to 79 Peace Street. Not long later, he received a text that a jet was on its way to pick him up. So, Rookie grabbed his backpack, dashed to the curb for his limo ride to the airport. Being the only passenger in a small jet with 2 pilots and a steward, Rookie felt guilty about his carbon footprint. He got over it by putting his powers of rationalization to work and deciding that Mom's request for a box of New York deli specialties justified his trip. He was treated like king of the world during the flight. Another limo met him in New York, and 20 minutes later, he entered a hotel near the next morning's meeting location, and he crashed the moment he saw the bed. Chapter 2: A Rocky Start. Rookie showered first thing in the morning, ate breakfast in the hotel dining room, and walked to 79 Peace Street. He arrived 10 minutes early and was greeted by a burly man with medium-length brown hair, and it shot out in all directions. The guy was wearing a crisp blue uniform, but with a wrinkled shirt tail hanging out behind him. Rookie followed him down a set of steps to the basement and into a corridor with a concrete floor and cinder block walls until the man stopped at a door, looked through its window, and said, "Guess you're the first to arrive here, sir." He opened it and ushered Rookie in and said, "Sir, security regulations require me to take your telephone and any electrical equipment or computers you may have." Rookie was surprised, but he gave the man his mobile phone. The man fixed him with a stare and said, "May I ask if you have anything else with you, other than your clothing, of course?" Rookie showed the man his mechanical pencil with playful feet that were hinged to the cap of the pencil's point and eraser. The man smiled and shook his head, saying, "Thank you, sir, but you may keep that. The others should be joining you soon." Rookie pulled out a plastic chair, sat at the conference table, twirling his mechanical pencil, and waited. And he waited. And he waited. Exasperated, he walked out the door and down the corridor, looking for the uniformed man or anyone else to complain to. Seeing an open door, he stuck his head in, but before he could say anything, the uniformed man rushed toward him. "Sir, I must ask you to return to the conference room. The boss will be there shortly." He walked Rookie back to the room, opened the door, withdrew, and locked it with a key. That made Rookie apprehensive, and he asked himself, "What's going on? What have I got myself into here?" After another half hour passed, Rookie returned to the door and tested the handle. It didn't budge, and he now realized the door was made of steel except for its small glass window. Faint sounds of a conversation penetrated, apparently from the uniformed man and a woman. "Yeah, I know. It's a bit strange, but no food and water. I'll throw in something to keep 'em quiet before I leave, but that's it. Don't make any contact. When you leave at the end of the second shift, just shut the lights and lock up. Mr. P wants him totally disoriented when he arrives in the morning." Rookie shook the door handle and pounded his fist on it, but nobody came. He thought, "What the heck? Is this prison? What happened to mining asteroids, and what's this all about disorienting me?" He kicked the door repeatedly. When nothing came of it, he sat back at the table. The room was like an empty box. Nothing to see, nothing to do. Every few minutes he went and pounded the door and yelled, "Let me out!" and returned to his seat. He was sitting with his eyes closed. Maybe it was about 5 p.m. when the door opened a crack. The uniformed man threw in a pile of blank paper and relocked the door, saying loudly, "Your meeting has been delayed. Write down your ideas about what can go wrong with asteroid mining and what you would do about it." Rookie charged the door, but the man had disappeared. All the kicking his toes could stand didn't bring him back. He thought, "That guy's a jailer, and he's just humoring the prisoner. What did Uncle Amerigo get me into?" Time hung like a damp cloud inside the featureless room. Rookie pulled the table and his chair near the door so he could hear any voices or signs of movement in the corridor. Empty hours crawled by, and the same thoughts circled through his mind. This is a setup. Uncle Amerigo can't have any idea what's happening, and his friend, a woman who invents rockets and sends them to the asteroid belt, she couldn't be behind this. This is kidnapping. And Uncle Amerigo, he doesn't call just anybody his friend. There's something else happening here. I'm the victim. I'm the sucker. How did I go wrong? A sound trickled down the corridor. It was a door closing, keys jingling, the scrape of a key into a lock, then fading footsteps. And then the lights went out. Black surrounded him. He was underground. All was silent. Rookie found the door and kicked it. He screamed. He could see nothing, absolutely nothing. He felt about, felt his chair, and smashed it into the door over and over. The door's window, he thought. He felt it, noted that its bottom was at chest level and its top was just above his head, and he smashed the chair at it repeatedly until a change in the impact's tone told him he struck the glass. But it didn't break. So what, he thought. I can't get through that little hole anyway. He couldn't even sit in the wrecked chair now, so he tentatively made his way through the pitch black with his hands out in front in search of another. Nothing, nothing, nothing. Ah! He smacked his shin, grabbed the new chair, and plopped down in it. He sat rubbing his shin at first, and then just listening to his own breathing with his head between his legs. He was exhausted. He was thirsty. He was starving. And he was in a pit with no way out. He talked to himself. What did I do wrong? What could I do right now? Uncle Amerigo, what did you do to me? You sent me into this pit. Why? Then Rookie's mind flashed. Uncle Amerigo didn't send me here. No, not to this place, not to 79 P Street. He sent me to number 69. Somebody hacked me, diverted me. This can't be the headquarters of America's towering geniuses, a rocket scientist, somebody who wanted to kick ideas around with the best minds available, minds who can get around every possible obstacle. And then, in the total darkness, Rookie's mind flashed again. Chapter 3. Thank you, Archimedes. Rookie sat in the dark. He pulled his pencil from his shirt pocket. He'd invented this new tool only days earlier, so its dimensions and operations were kind of like a part of him. He knew it well. It was, in fact, a mechanical pencil, but it was also an emergency tool. After reading how Archimedes had used a screw to pump water, Rookie had devised a slim, lightweight screw set that could extend to 4 times its length and generate nearly a horsepower of force just from the twist of his fingers. He pushed his new chair ahead of him toward where he calculated the table and door were located. But he struck the wall instead. Intuition told him to check to his left. He did, and he found the door 3 steps later. After locating the glass window, he placed his mechanical pencil along the bottom of its frame, capped the eraser and tip with a playful feat he'd created and hinged onto the pencil, and twisted its center. That elongated it until it was secured against both sides of the window frame. Rookie then twisted with his forefinger and thumb. The metal frame was silent at first, and then it complained. It complained louder, complaining, squeaking and stuff. And as each subsequent twist pushed the frame into and around the door's steel panels, it got louder. Progress happened in jerks. A frightening thought stopped Rookie cold. What if the glass popped out into the corridor and the pencil followed it? He'd have no way to expand the window hole to make it through. Holding the pencil tightly, he loosened the screw and raised it to the middle of the frame. Then he tightened it again until the frame expanded outward in jerks, just like before. Then he did the same to the top of the frame. He did it again, and a timid pop came out. And that was followed by like a cymbal crash and the sound of shattering glass falling onto the floor. If Rookie hadn't kept his head down, shards would have blasted his face. After pocketing his pencil, he felt the frame's edges and pushed the remaining glass splinters out or down inside the hollow door. Then he thought, is it wide enough? Can I make it through? Okay, fine. How? How do I do it? Feet first or face first? He chose feet first because he didn't want his hands to fall into the corridor onto glass shards all over the floor. Through the dark, he pushed the table tight against the door, climbed on, stood with his back to the door, raised his right leg, and tried to raise and push it through the opening. But his body told him it wouldn't work. He thought about placing a chair on the table and trying it from that height, but hey, he imagined the chair could slide and that could lead to serious trouble. He decided he had to try it head first. Think, he said to himself, but don't think too much, just get it done. Rookie twisted, poked his head through, left shoulder up, and scraped the skin on his kidney and hip as he balanced there. He moved outward onto his right femur. It was leveraged. He feared it would crack under his weight and the torque of his movements, but boldly undulating like a fish, he pushed away from the door, and gravity did the rest. Crashing to the floor, he couldn't see. His head and shoulder took the brunt of the fall, and he rolled to the middle of the corridor. He felt 15 kinds of pain that was exaggerated by the pitch black. He couldn't see if he was bleeding. His head hurt. His right elbow hurt. His shoulder felt like it had been wrenched out of the socket and shoved back in. He lay on his side, feeling glass shards under his cheek and hair. He was breathing hard, feeling for serious damage in any body part. Warm blood started to trickle down the side of his forehead, but all his body parts were still connected and able to move. He slid through the broken glass to the far wall and slowly crawled up it. The dizziness passed, his mind cleared, and the total darkness wrapped itself tightly around him. He held the wall until he was sure of his balance. He asked himself where to go. You're blind. Use your other senses and find an exit. Well, ordering himself went a long way because he always did what he ordered himself. He thought, going back the way he'd come, that felt wrong. But going further down the corridor, that meant entering unknown territory. What to do, he thought. Take the chance, he told himself. He scuttled sideways to his right, with his right hand extended in front and his left hand in constant contact with a wall. Then his right hand hit a 90-degree wall. Moving along it to the left, he felt a door. He found the handle, pushed it open, and checked that the handle on the far side would not lock to ensure that he could get back through it if he needed to retreat. A faint bit of illumination pulled him down that new corridor. The illumination was tiny, but it was light and 1,000 times better than complete blackness. As he advanced, he could make out the corridor's walls and could tell the illumination was coming through an open door on the far side of the corridor. On reaching that door, his eyes were stabbed by flashing neon light entering through the room's door window. But straight ahead, he could see a large door at the end of the corridor. Does that lead out of the building? He asked himself. He froze in indecision. Could that door be alarmed? Probably. He He turned toward the door with light coming through the window and opened it. 2 large windows brought in light from the street, even though they faced wells below street level. He saw no sensors or alarms on them. He guessed it was maybe 4 in the morning or so, and he thought, if I can get through that big window, I can be out and away before anybody could catch me. He looked back at the door thinking, but if I could bolt it from the inside, nobody would know I left, and they couldn't follow me. There was no bolt, though. It was a simple, round doorknob. He looked around the room. Hey, he turned, and all the walls seemed to be covered with large flip chart pages. They're all over the walls. There's text, there was diagrams. He could barely read the text in the dim light, but he got close and he studied it. The top line of one sheet said, Fund Aeronautics. Fund! He exclaimed under his breath. Of course, the guard said Mr. P. Hey, I better get out of here fast, he murmured to himself. But he didn't. He looked through the sheets. A crude detailed drawing showed hundreds of mirrors connected to create the image of a cigarette with its tip glowing red and smoke rising. Text line said, Smoke funds, smoke funds. Enough, get out of here, get caught, he told himself. He tried to open one of the windows, but it seemed jammed in its frame. He tried the other. He tried desperately. Finally, it yielded to his determination. Ricky threw his leg over the sill, hopped out, and scaled the brick window. He went up the window well, which was like a meter tall, and over the iron fence at the top. He looked up and down the empty street, spied a diner, and sprinted along the street's center line toward it. He was the only customer. The cook peered over his grill and looked at him as though he were a zombie. Ricky plopped in a booth, took a deep breath. Then he looked back toward the door and saw a payphone. He ran over and phone collected Amerigo. When he got back to his table, he ordered 2 full breakfasts of bacon and eggs. Chapter 4, Heaven Bound. Rookie, I'm so sorry this happened to you, Elaine Merck said. When you didn't arrive for yesterday's brainstorming session, I was disappointed, but, well, I thought something must have come up that you had to attend to. Hey, after hearing now how you escaped, I understand why your Uncle Amerigo says you're in a class by yourself when it comes to improvising. Does he know what happened? Yeah, I called him just before coming here and I also alerted him that Fund was behind the kidnapping. Well, that angered him, and he's just as angry that the creep is planning to put a cigarette billboard in space, Rookie said as he was shaking his head. Elaine answered, Well, he and I agree on a lot of things. One is preventing the commercialization of space, and another is stopping the poison of cigarettes. You mentioned you'd had a couple of run-ins with Fund before. Do you happen to know what he's doing now? Ricky shook his head no. Well, his uncle, a creepy guy named Johnston, he died and left him billions of dollars. If you think Fund was trouble before, imagine the havoc he can create with billions in his pockets. Did you know he now owns the building next door? Ricky said, That wouldn't happen to be 79 P Street, would it? Elaine nodded. Then Rookie explained it was the site of his kidnapping, and she continued with disdain. I'd move out of this city if that meant I could get away from him, but now I hear he's borrowed a rocket from some nasty dictator and is on his way to the ISS in the next day or so. Yuck! My astronauts could be forced to share the ISS with him. Now, they might need to navigate around a cigarette billboard to get there. And the rest of us on Earth, we will have to see that disgusting thing when we try to enjoy looking up at the night sky. When Rookie laid out his uncle's idea, Elaine sat back in her chair. She interlaced her fingers on her lap and said, "No wonder I like Amerigo. He thinks like me. His idea just might work and work fast. Rookie, I have a rocket being wheeled to a launch pad on Cape Canaveral this morning. It'll be ready to fly tomorrow. I intended it to be a manual ISS docking training exercise for my bright new pilot, but if I were to repurpose the launch, would you be willing to fly the rocket to the ISS, bust up Fun's plan, and arrest him for space junk violations?" Well, Charlotte, my other pilot, has a load of things going on her plate right now. She'd gladly skip the trip and be happy to give you the training you'd need. Rookie's jet arrived at Cape Canaveral 3 hours later. Charlotte greeted him and immediately submerged him in training. She schooled him in the rocket's controls, had him fitted for a pressure suit to withstand the triple gravity forces he'd be subject to, reviewed the basics of the ISS, and gave him a quick overview of docking procedures. She assured him he'd be backed up by the spaceship's artificial intelligence at every step, but that didn't keep him from thinking, "Sheesh, I'll be 400 meters up and on my own, with nothing between me and outer space except the thin skin of a rocket capsule and a jumble of control knobs." Well, he studied into the night. He got little sleep, but he relished the experience of being escorted to the launch pad, climbing the gantry, hearing the countdown, and being slammed back in his seat as the rocket headed for the heavens. He was most awed at how the rocket's artificial intelligence handled the millions of activities that led to a flawless launch and a flight that went without a hitch. But when he neared the ISS, Rookie's excitement wore off as he thought, "This must be how a dog feels when it chases a car and then the car stops. Like, what do I do now?" Charlotte told me not to worry about the flight, but I did. Amerigo told me to make a plan for capturing Funt before I left the ground, but I didn't. Ouch. I'm starting this mission on the wrong foot. Rookie pushed the worry from his mind. He'd be docking soon, and he needed to survive that before figuring out how to deal with Fund. There were 4 ISS docking stations, and he was scheduled for the Zvezda module. Normal docking takes 24 hours, but he was in Elaine's newest ship, and its autopilot handled the whole procedure with precision and faster than a human could. Then the radio lit up with an incoming message from Charlotte. "Hey, Ricky, a quick update. The Russians have announced the temporary closing of 3 docking modules to repair flaws. Luckily for you, you were already scheduled for the 4th at Zvezda. French astronauts who've been at the ISS for 2 months have been told to wrap up their experiments and depart. I also learned that Fun just arrived at one of the docking modules being shut down. He was allowed entry, but his co-pilot was instructed to depart. Happy hunting up there, friend." Rookie's spacecraft started its automatic docking procedure. It moved ever so slowly toward the ISS. He waited, and then he heard the clicks of the final bolts sealing themselves into place. Laughing to himself, he said, "Hey, sweet, I should be proud of all I've done." But when the hatch and airlock opened, his joking disappeared. His face became grim, his eyes showed determination, and he said to himself, "Here I come. Fund, it's showtime."